This video is to go over Test B of Chapter 3. If you're planning on taking a retake, I would love for you to watch this with your test in front of you so you can kind of see what you did and see what I do and see if you can pick up on any mistakes you made. All right, so let's look at number 1. Identify the terms and like terms. So we have two things. We have terms and like terms. Now, I want to add the opposite. So I see I have 8 minus x squared. I want to get everything to plus. So I add the opposite there. So now I circle my terms. I have 8, then I have a negative x squared. I have an x, and I have a negative 4x. So my terms, 8 negative x squared, x, and negative 4x. Now remember, terms, like terms, have to be either constants or they can be variables with the same exponent. So there's a constant, but there's no other constants. Here's negative x squared, but there's no other variable x that is squared. Here's a variable x, and here's another variable x with a coefficient. And because they have the same variable, those are like terms. So my like terms would be x and negative 4x. This is number 2. We need to simplify the expression. And again, whenever you simplify it, let's figure out what our terms are and let's put them together. First thing I do is I'm going to take this minus, I'm going to add the opposite. So now I have a negative 9 there, and I'm going to add the opposite. So I have a negative 1/2 x, and I'm going to add the opposite, and I have a negative 10. And this is 2/3 x. So I have everything in adding, add. Now I want to see what my like terms are. I know that this and this are like terms, so I bring them down. 2/3 x plus negative 1/2 x. Okay, whenever I add fractions, I need to have the same denominator. So I know the common denominator is going to be 6. This will be 4/6 x plus negative 3/6 x. Then if I take 4 plus a negative 3, that's going to leave me with 1. The denominator is 6 and x. So those two right there get me to 1/6 x. And that's a positive 1/6 x. Now, the other thing I have is I have this negative 9 and negative 10. When I do a negative 9 plus a negative 10, that's going to give me a negative 19. So I could do plus negative 19. But also I want you to get to the place where if you're adding a negative, it's the same as subtracting it. So for this answer, 1/6 x minus 19. If you happen to have that, I would have accepted that, but this right here is what I'm looking for. All right, here's another simplifying. This time I only have one subtraction, so I'm going to take this, add the opposite. And so I have a 6.6, I have an 8.1z, I have a negative 2.3z, and I have a 9.1. All right, if I put the two constants together, that's a positive plus a positive. It's going to give me a 15.7. Okay? And the other ones that can go together will be these two right here. This is with a z, and this is with a z. So I bring that down, I go 8.1z minus, or plus, a negative 2.3z. But whenever you add a negative, it's going to be, the same thing would be 8.1z minus 2.3z. So then you just take 8.1 minus 2.3, and when you do that, you get 5.8z. And I'm going to put that with the 15.7 plus 5.8z. And that's my answer. I got all my terms. I put the two like terms together, the two constants. I put the two like terms that have a variable z together. And I can't go any simpler than this because this is a constant and this has a variable z. Number 4 is where we're adding linear expressions. So it's nice that we have this add here, so we don't have to change anything. But we do have some subtraction in the parentheses. So 1/4 x, I'm going to add a negative 5. And 1/2 x, I'm going to change that to plus a negative 12. Now, I can't put those together, and I can't put those together. So, I have my terms. I have 1/4 x, negative 5, 1/2 x, and a negative 12. Let's put them together. And I'll do a different color for this one. I'll do blue for my one with a variable. So it's 1/4 x plus 1/2 x equals, now we need to have it to be the same. 4 is the same denominator, and so this is going to be 2/4 x. So when I add that together, I get 3/4 x. Now, let's do green to add my constants. And remember, this is a negative 5, and this is a negative 12. When I do negative 5 plus negative 12, that's going to give me a negative 17. Okay, there I have it. I have the terms that have a variable put together, and I have the terms that are constants put together. So now I'm going to add these together, and it becomes 3/4 x. And I could add them together. So I could say plus a negative 17, like that. But whenever I'm adding a negative, it's the same as subtraction. So I think what I'll do is I'll go like this. And I will just do minus 17. And there's my answer. All right, this is number 5, where we're actually subtracting linear expressions. And so I know we struggled a little bit with this. What I'm going to do first is I see that this is a minus, and so I don't want to subtract them. I want to add the opposite. So I change that to adding, and then everything in here has to be the opposite. So the opposite of 1/2 is negative 1/2 x. The opposite of minus 6 is plus 6. All right. So I got that all done. Now I look inside of the parentheses. This is a subtraction here, and this is an addition. So the addition's fine. I'm going to change this to add the opposite. And so now I have a 5/6x, I have a negative 7, I have a negative 1/2 x, and I have a positive 6. So when I put these together, let's put the like terms with a variable. 5/6 x plus negative 1/2 x. And let's make it 5/6 x plus a negative 3/6 x. That's going to give me 2/6 x, or simplify it down to 1/6 x. Okay. Then I have this negative 7 and a positive 6. And when I put those together, negative 7 plus 6 equals a negative 1. So then I got to bring this together with this. 1/6 x plus a negative 1, or just minus 1. And that right there is my answer. All right, number 6, this is where we're doing some distributive property. So when we do that, we take what's on the outside of these parentheses and we distribute it to this and to this. Now I see that in here I have a minus, so I'm going to change that to addition and make that the opposite. Have it go from a positive 16 to a negative 16. Now I have 3/4 times 12. I'm going to put 12 over 1 x, and that's going to get me 36 over 4 x. And 36 over 4 is the same as 9x. Okay. Now I'm going to take this 3/4 times a negative 16, and I'll put this over 1. And when I do that, I get a negative 48 over 4, which is going to be equals a negative 12. So now I have this whole thing right here is now turned into a 9x minus 12, and then I have to add the 2x because this is still a part of it, so that comes down there. Now I put my like terms together, and I can see that if I add the opposite, I have a 9x, a negative 12, and a 2x. I put the 9x with the 2x, that gets me 11x, and it could be plus negative 12, but plus a negative is the same as minus 12. And there is my answer. Number 7, distributive again. Okay, let's do inside here. I see I have a minus, so I'm going to add that, change that to addition, and make that minus 2 instead of plus 2. So I have negative 5.2 times m plus negative 2 minus 3. So I have to take this and times it to that and times it to that. Now a negative 5 times m is negative 5.2 m. And then I got to do this negative 5.2 times negative 2. And a negative times a negative always gets me a positive, so that's going to get me a positive 10.4. So I add 10.4, and then minus 3. Okay, so now I have, if I look at just this problem, 10.4 minus 3, those are two constants. I put those together. That's going to get me a 7.4. And then, so that's those two. And then I have this negative 5. So I bring down the negative 5.2 to m, and I add it to this positive 7.4. And that right there is my answer. Number 8 is factoring out a number, and this time we're using the greatest common factor. So you look at 6 and 36. And what is the greatest common factor? I always go to the smallest, and I look at the factors of 6, and I have 1 and 6, and I have 2 and 3. Those are my factors. So I want to find the greatest one. Does 6 go into 36? It sure does. So 6 is my greatest common factor. I put that on the outside, and then I take this, divide it by 6, and this divided by 6. And when I do that, 6x divided by 6 is just x, plus 36y divided by 6 is 6y. And that right there is my answer. If I want to check it to make sure I did it right, I do the distributive property. I do that times that, and I do that times that. And when I do it, it gives me 6x plus 36y. And I know that that looks like what I started with, and I am good to go. Number 9 is when we're factoring out a number. So we're going to factor out 1/10 out of 1/10 x minus 7/10. Once I know that I'm factoring out 1/10, that's what goes on the outside. And then I take that and I divide this by 1/10. Now I see I have a minus 7/10, so I'm going to change that to add the opposite. And now I have a negative 7/10, and I'm going to divide that by 1/10. When I do this, the 1/10 divided by 1/10 just gives me 1, so that's just an x. And then I go negative 7/10 divided by 1, divided by 1/10. And when I divide fractions, I have to do keep, change, flip. So I keep the first thing, negative 7/10. I change the division to multiplication, and I flip the other number, or I take the reciprocal of it. Okay, so now I can cross simplify. That 10 becomes a 1, that becomes a 1. Now it's negative 7 times 1 is negative 7, 1 times 1 is 1, and negative 7 over 1 is the same as negative 7. So now I bring my negative 7 and put it right here, and that's what I get. This here is my answer. And I could check it to make sure that it all works. I want to make sure that if I distribute it, it's going to give me this right here. 1/10 x, 1/10 times x is 1/10 x, and 1/10 times negative 7 is going to be a negative 7/10, and this is the same as that. So I did it. Okay, here we have another factoring out. This one's tricky because it's a negative number, so we got to be real careful. We know we're going to factor out a negative 2.9, so that's going to go on the outside. Now I take that negative 2.9. Well, before I do that, I see that this is a minus 11.6. I'm going to add the opposite, so that becomes a negative 11.6. And so I'm going to take this part, this term, and this term, and I'm going to divide each by negative 2.9. And don't be afraid to use your calculator on this. So if we go 8.7 divided by 2.9 equals, it's 3, but it's a positive divided by a negative. So that's always going to be a negative. And then I divide this term by negative 2.9. And when I divide a negative by a negative, it's going to be positive. So let me do 11.6 divided by 2.9 equals plus 4. Now, I did make one little mistake here. This b, I got to bring that along with the 3. When I do 8.7 divided by negative 2.9, it gets me a negative 3b. Okay, and that is my answer. Now, I'm going to check it. I'm not satisfied with just going with it. So I have to have something. I'm going to change colors here. I'm going to make this in blue. This is what I want to get. So I'm going to do my distributive property, negative 2.9 times the negative 3b. And when I do negative 2.9 times negative 3b, that gets me an 8.7b, a positive. And then when I do negative 2.9 times 4, a negative times a positive is going to give me a negative, and 4 times 2.9 gets me 11.6, and so I have 8.7b minus 11.6, and those are the same, so this is correct. This problem we could have done a couple different ways. When I see everybody in the group is buying a ticket, a drink, and a popcorn, and there's 6 people in the group, so I'm going to take 6 times a ticket plus a drink plus popcorn. Okay, so let's fill those things in. So it's going to be 6, and a ticket is 5.75, and a drink is 2.50, and a popcorn is 3.50. Now these are all constant terms. They're all like, so I'm going to put those together, and it's going to get me 5.75 plus 2.5 plus 3.5. That gets me $11.75. So I've done everything in the parentheses. Now I just do 6 times that. And when I do that, it gets me $70.50. And that's the answer. This word problem is just finding the perimeter of a rectangular object, and you take that perimeter and you times it by the cost, which is $4. So I'm going to draw a rectangular fountain, has the length of L meters, so there's the length and there's the length, and a width is 3 meters less than its length. So I take the length minus 3 and the length minus 3. All right, so now I just have to add all of these up, or to get the perimeter of it, perimeter equals 2 times the length plus the width. Perimeter equals 2 times my length is just L, and my width is L minus 3. I put my L's together. That gets me 2L minus 3. I can't put those together because they're not like terms. All right, I'm one step closer to my perimeter. Now I'm going to take the distributive property. 2 times 2L, that gets me 4L. And 2 times, well, I could add the opposite. 2 times a negative 3 is a negative 6. All right, so this is my perimeter right here, but it's saying tiles cost $4 each. So we're going to take 4 times the perimeter. And when I do that, I do 4 times 4L. That gets me 16L. And then 4 times minus 6 is a minus 24. So that the answer I'm looking for. All right, number 13. A square pit has a perimeter. Okay. Oops. I love dealing with things that are square because I know every side is the same. This is the same as that, it's the same as that, it's the same as that, it's the same as that. So I know the perimeter equals 24x plus 36. If that's my perimeter, it says what is the length of the patio? So one of these lengths, that's what I'm looking for. So I take this and divide it by 4. So 24x divided by 4 plus 36 divided by 4. And when I divide all that by 4, it gets me 6x plus 9. All right, we're going to evaluate the expression, and it's a long one. And this is what x equals. So what I could do is I am going to simplify that first. So let me do that in red. 4.5 minus 3.5x plus 2 minus x plus 1.5. Now I see I have some subtraction and some addition. I want to get everything to be addition. So I'm going to do 4.5, add the opposite, plus 2, and then this minus, I'm going to add the opposite, plus 1.5. So now I'm going to circle my terms, and I'm going to do it in a color, like blue. I'll do all my constants. 4.5, that's a constant. 2, that's a constant. And 1.5, that's a constant. And then I'm going to do in green, I'll do my other like terms. This has the variable x, and this has the variable x. So now let's add these together. Let's do these three first. So it's 4.5 plus 2 plus 1.5. When I do that, that gets me, well, 1.5 plus 4.5, that's 6, plus 2 is 8. All right, now let's do the green. And I'm going to add to it. What am I going to add to it? We'll have to add these two together. A negative 3.5x plus a negative x gets me a minus 4.5x. Now let's use black. I'm going to change the x with this 2. So it's 8 plus negative 4.5 times 2. Because whenever a number is right next to a variable, it's multiplication. So, and I could add, well, no, it's already adding. So when I do, let's do this first, because you have to do multiplication first. What's negative 4.5 times 2? It's going to be a negative 9. And then I bring down my plus, and I bring down my 8. 8 plus negative 9, that's going to give me a negative 1. And that is my answer. All right, we have one last question. We have the lengths and miles of 2 highways after T years of construction can be modeled by 2T plus 150 and 15T plus 200. So I have 2 different highways. So I have, let me do this in the color. I'm going to do this first one in red. So 20T plus 150. And then I have another one that's 15t plus 200. And it says the difference of, I want to find the difference, and the difference is subtraction of the lengths of the highway when t is 4. So let me get the length of each, and then I'll find the difference. So let's put 4 in here. 20 times 4 plus 150. 20 times 4 is 80 plus 150. That gets me 230. And let's go over here. 15, put 4 in there, plus 200. 15 times 4 is 60 plus 200. And that gets me 260. So I have this 230 and I have this 260. And I want to find the difference of those. And so I take the 260 minus 230. It gives me a distance of 30. And it's miles. All right, that goes through the whole test. If you have any questions, please email me, talk to me. I want to work this. I want you to have these skills. So I will help you if you don't understand anything on here. Once you've watched this video, you've seen what you've done, I'm going to create a new test, very similar, just with different numbers, and you may retake, and you can set that up with me.